You're listening to Everything's Canceled podcast with your hosts,
Herman
and Lorena. Subscribe to our podcast wherever you're listening to right now and follow us on Instagram at Everything's Canceled podcast. In each episode, we discuss topics in detail that could be triggering for some listeners, so please listen with care.
All content provided in this podcast is for general information and entertainment purposes only. Any copyrighted content reproduced in this podcast is done so in accordance with Section 107 of the Copyright Act, allowing fair use and is not an infringement of copyright. Any information discussed referring to specific incidents are allegations only, unless proven otherwise in a court of law. Due to the changing nature of laws, rules, and regulations, the hosts will make no representations to the accuracy or completeness of any information in this podcast and will not be liable for any errors, omissions, nor the availability of this information, for any losses, injuries, or damage from the display or use of this information.
Welcome to Everything's Canceled podcast. This is a little unexpected extra episode for you.
We're here. We're back.
Here's your hosts,
Herman
and Lorena. And I hope that you're already following us on Instagram at Everything's Canceled.
Yeah.
And I don't know who needs to hear this.
I started a TikTok. I don't know what our name is. Yeah. I think it's Herman and Lorena, but I'm going to change it to Everything's Canceled. So
yeah, I guess try to find us on
What
TikTok.
else do we need? We have a Twitter too, but I don't think we barely use that shit.
Just find us on Instagram
yeah,
so you can see.
that's the one we're using the most, I guess.
Yeah, that way you can see all of Herman's stupid posts. But anyways, I don't know who needs to hear this, but if you are so sick of hearing our horrible disclaimer that's 30 seconds long, if you're on Spotify, you can skip that shit. It's just for whatever lawyers want to come after us.
Yeah, not that it does anything, I'm sure, but it's true. Everything that we say on this podcast is allegations, or we're repeating something that was alleged in something else. And we're quoting sources here. We're either quoting sources or we're providing satirical commentary.
We're just gossip spreaders, Herman.
Yeah, we're just sideline. We're just making it worse, right? We're just here to make everything worse and ruin everybody.
You're lucky that it's only like 20 seconds long, because it was like a minute and a half before we figured out how to do like double the speed.
Maybe we can cut it down a little bit more.
Ugh. Anyways, you can skip that every time. So who's canceled this week again, Herman?
Yeah, well, we're back, and it's Diddy again, because we can't seem to get off Diddy. Diddy, well, just like we predicted in our last podcast, Diddy has not gone away. And immediately, like, we tried to cover every Diddy lawsuit, and then immediately after we release our podcast, a new bombshell lawsuit drops with a lot more information, and I mean a lot of the same type of things, but a lot more of it, and a lot of new stuff. And so I guess we got to talk about it.
Yeah, and it's just an opportunity, like, after listening back on our last episodes, which blew up, by the way. So thanks if you're new here and you came through the Diddy episode. We're happy to have you here, and we appreciate everyone that's been
thanks for listening,
trickling in and sharing. But there were, we do listen back on our podcast and, try to go over what we could have improved and all that. And we always think of things we wish we would have said, or we, forgot to say. And so I do have...
Or at the times at which I misspoke and said something wrong entirely. If you ever catch those, you can please send them to us.
Because we can fix it.
We are endeavoring to try and always be as accurate as we possibly can. There's so many details, and we want to cover so much stuff that sometimes prove me wrong. Prove me wrong, people. I would love it.
Yeah, and also just mentioning here now, we also love your suggestions of who you want to hear covered on the show.
Yeah, that too.
We've been getting great suggestions. We have like such a long list of what we want to cover. It's sometimes hard to decide what's coming next. And spoiler alert now, what is after this? After we finally get rid of Diddy?
Well, we're dying to do an episode on the Chicks.
Yeah, I think that's coming.
Yeah, we'd like to talk about the Dixie Chicks and talk about their cancellation and how that all went down, because I think that it'll be an interesting one to dive into and to like make it...
To compare it
to exactly.
The last few that we did. That's, first off, we've only covered men so far, other than, I guess, Jada on the Will episode. But it'll be interesting to cover women and the differences of cancellation there. Anyways, let's
the differences in who was canceled, why they were canceled, who did the canceling, and the environment in which cancel culture existed at the time, and comparing and contrasting that between then and now. I think we might be able to come up with some... Hopefully, we'll be able to come up with some interesting things about that. That was my entire project with this podcast, was that by looking specifically at some of these stories and digging into them, we can expose the details and we can like have a deeper understanding of each one of these individual people and their stories and the reasons why they're canceled, and we can make a clear determination about why they were canceled, whether they should be or should have been canceled in the first place, or whether they should be canceled, maybe like in the case of Diddy. And then also from there, we can use that to have a more clear understanding of what cancel culture is, how cancel culture functions in society, and like have a better and more clear idea of what it is than just like maybe just like having like a like cancel culture good, cancel culture bad type of argument.
Yeah. Well, what's up with Diddy?
Yeah, so
Again.
a lot of new stuff has happened with Diddy. There's a few updates to some previous Diddy stuff, but the big one that went down is that there is a big fat new lawsuit against Diddy. It was filed on February 26th by Little Rod, Rodney Jones. Rodney Little Rod Jones. Who is Little Rod, right?
This is someone I have no relationship to. I don't know who he is. I don't fucking know.
So Little Rod is a music producer, and Little Rod was hired by Diddy to produce a bunch of the songs, to produce one of his most recent albums, the Love album, Off the Grid.
Okay.
Is that your favorite Diddy album, Lorena?
Sure.
No, because nobody's heard that album. I've never fucking heard it. Have you?
No, I mean, I don't know, but I mean, like,
Yeah.
who am I? I don't listen.
I'm not to put down Little Rod. Maybe he might be a fantastic producer as far as I know, but I haven't heard any of the material.
I'm going to be perfectly honest. I kind of tune out names that start with Lil now because there's too many.
Everybody's a Lil this, Lil that, right?
Yeah, and
Lil is popular.
I guess it's just like they kind of started blurring together after the 90s.
Lil is big.
Okay, go on.
So he has filed a new lawsuit against Diddy, and this one is big. Like the Cassie lawsuit is 35 pages. This one is like 70 pages long. It's a fatty.
The lawsuit is for sexual abuse, though.
Yeah, it's for a lot of shit.
And it's wild because I'm just going to point out the big thing here is like this is a man suing him for sexual assault. It's a much bigger stack of paper. And I'm going to tell you right now, the internet blew up way more over this situation.
I mean,
this is all I've seen.
Yeah, definitely.
And
we're hearing about this a lot.
And what people have taken from
Cassie
this is
lawsuit was also a big deal.
Yes, but the internet is like Diddy is gay. If you look up Diddy's name right now, the only headlines, like go look up Diddy on Reddit, you're just going to see, so Diddy's gay, Diddy gay this, Diddy gay that. It's like the main focus is not that maybe he raped a man, it's that he raped a man.
I think it's interesting because like we came in like at the peak of like, sure, a lot of people had heard the Diddy rumors before, but now everyone has heard the Diddy rumors, right?
Well,
like
and
that's
before,
the difference between now and a couple weeks ago.
Well, and before, like what we talked about in the first two episodes was just like, well, he involved men in these situations and he was blackmailing them, but it seemed a lot of it was directed about like him having men have sex with Cassie. And like, is he gay by proxy by watching or whatever? Like, maybe there's some gayness in there. But this time, a man is claiming that he was raped by Diddy, and that makes him gay. And like, the irony in that is that Diddy this entire time has been using gay blackmail against these people in all of these ways that now it's kind of turning back on him.
I think that the fact that this is gay stuff and that it's exposing Diddy as potentially being DL or homosexual or at least engaging in homosexual activity at times, that is a huge part of this bombshell in the sense that there's probably some homophobia involved in that, right?
Well, yeah, there's also the layer of like nobody cares when a female victim comes forward, but now we're all listening because it's a man talking. Maybe he's going to be trusted more. Or I guess kind of the tone that I hear people talk about is like, well, of course he was raping women. Of course everyone's out there raping women, whatever. But then this time it's like, oh my God, he raped a man. That's so gay. This is insane. for a man to also come forward and be vulnerable enough. Men are usually the silent victims. They don't report rape as much as female people do. But it's just disappointing to go online and just kind of see what people are saying. And it's less about the rape aspect and more about the gay aspect. And again, Cassie is not really being talked about. Neither is Kim.
Before we go, what I was trying to say earlier is he does not specifically allege that Diddy raped him per se, but he does make specific allegations of sexual assault.
Yeah,
So
sorry. I mean,
the lawsuit is very specific about that, and so
sometimes
I'll use that specific language when I get there. So in the lawsuit, Lil Rod makes a lot of specific claims, and he details what it was like to be with Diddy. And so when Lil Rod was working for Diddy, he said that this is like so similar to so many of these other situations where basically like when he was working on his album and producing his album, Lil Rod lived with Diddy the entire time. They were together all the time. The language is that he lived with Diddy for months at a time.
Is this another one of the mentor situations?
Kind of. I mean, obviously he is employed by Diddy and he was paid for the work. And this is another part of the lawsuit, is that he's also suing for unpaid work, saying that he was paid a fraction of what he was promised. Also that Diddy promised a bunch of other things, a house, a producer of the year award, all kinds of stuff.
Okay.
Basically, he said that the entire time he was working for Diddy, he lived with him and he went everywhere with Diddy. They spent holidays together. He missed major family events and holidays with his family because he was with Diddy all the time. And they worked together at a number of different locations in Los Angeles, New York, Miami. They were on Diddy's yacht in the Virgin Islands. So he went everywhere with Diddy.
This sounds similar to the employees for Will Smith. I think this is just part of working in the industry, it seems. It seems to be like a huge sacrifice to work for these stars. Just being involved in Hollywood or music industry, it seems like you really sacrifice time with your family and you just become all consumed with this person. It's wild.
Yeah, it just seems that Diddy expected him not only to record him and record his album, but to be with him all the time and to participate in everything that Diddy did.
I'm sure the lines get blurry there between work, friendship,
yes.
Romantic,
very
sexual.
Very much so when you are working with Diddy. And so as a requirement of his job of producing Diddy's album and like recording Diddy's material, Jones says that he had to record him constantly. And so because he recorded him constantly, he claims, and he uses this specific language in the lawsuit, that he has hundreds of hours of footage and audio recordings of Combs, his staff, and guests engaging in serious illegal activity.
Let's just record me, please, while I live my life unhinged.
Videotaping this crime spree is the best idea we ever had.
Yeah, that's basically what's going on here. Is part of, he's recording his album, but he's also recording him like hanging out with Diddy and doing stuff. Basically, this seems like having this language in the lawsuit is like shots fired, at Diddy. We have this material showing you doing a lot of fucking illegal shit. What's your move?
50 Cent is going to have great material for his doc.
I mean, there must be so much.
Dude, I was shocked when we watched the Russell Brand documentary for the Russell Brand episode. Go back and listen to that.
Oh, God, yeah.
Of where he's just like smoking crack.
And that is part of what is alleged in this lawsuit, is that Lil Rod claims that some of these recordings include evidence of the acquisition, use, and distribution of all kinds of drugs, the same type of drugs that we've heard Diddy associated with before, like ecstasy, cocaine, GHB, ketamine, marijuana, mushrooms. But he also claims that he has evidence of him illegally carrying firearms, which is something that is like a common thread in other Diddy situations where both Cassie and not so much J-Lo, but like people have rumored about in that 1999 shooting that it's like, Diddy makes people carry guns for him, both as like a form of intimidation, but also so he can get around the legality of he's not carrying a gun. And then there's a number of other like very serious claims that are made in this lawsuit that Diddy often was providing laced alcoholic beverages to sex workers and to minors in a number of different situations. He claims that his son, Christian Combs, is involved in a lot of these different situations, and that he has evidence of him drugging and sexually assaulting a woman. He makes
Wow.
a specific claim about a woman sexually assaulting him, young Miami's cousin. He makes another claim about a situation in which Cuba Gooding Jr. sexually assaults him, because he says that Diddy offered him to Cuba Gooding Jr. and that Cuba Gooding Jr. tried to sexually assault him. And another thing that's crazy about this is that there are photos of all this stuff in the lawsuit. There's photos of him with Cuba. There's photos of this encounter with young Miami's cousin. And the photos are like, they look like they're like screenshots from like videos. So it's a little bit difficult to tell what's going on. But I mean, it's clear that those are those people and they're actual photos from those actual events.
I'm still stuck on that his son is involved in this. Like, that's so devastating. I can't wrap my mind. Like, I mean, yeah, he's his own person, can make his own choices, but it's just like when Diddy's your dad, this is your destiny. And just like doing those things around your son or encouraging them or teaching him to like drug people, it's just devastating. I can't, I'm stuck on that.
Another thing that's kind of wild about this lawsuit is that there are several parts that are like redacted, where it says that, oh, an unnamed rapper or R&B singer, like it claims that they were like at parties with underage girls and sex workers, basically at Diddy parties. And then it redacts their names, but then in the subnotes of the lawsuit, it'll give information about who it is that makes it very clear exactly who it is. Too. It's very strange language.
Are you daring enough to take guesses?
Yeah, it's
there?
very clear that it's obvious that they're talking about like Usher and Meek Mill,
Yeah,
and there's one
okay.
other one too. it's odd. And then the other thing in this lawsuit is that Lil Rod is there in the studio when Diddy allegedly and his son like shoot a dude in the bathroom. Like they have an argument. They go in the bathroom with him. They're like like supposedly Lil Rod is like 2 feet away. And like they shoot this dude.
Wow.
Okay.
So he died or he was just shot.
He didn't die, but so okay, here's the story. So this, according to Lil Rod's lawsuit, they're at the Chalice Recording Studios, and this is in September of 2022.
This is all recent.
Yeah, this is
Okay.
all very recent. This all took place within like the last couple years.
God, Diddy doesn't like get off his game as he gets older, huh? He's just like,
So supposedly what happens is Lil Rod is in the recording studio, and Diddy, Justin Combs, his son, and another guy who's like a dude from Los Angeles. I don't know who he is. They describe him as a dude named G. Diddy and his son are arguing with this dude, G. They go into the bathroom, and Lil Rod hears gunshots, and then Diddy and his son come out, and the dude's shot. He's shot in the stomach. And so like Lil Rod runs in there. He's like tending to the guy. An ambulance is called. The police come. Diddy tells everybody to lie to the cops, right? He tells them to tell the cops, the LAPD, that the shooting took place outside the studio, like just outside on the sidewalk, and that him and his son weren't involved. And so that's basically what happens is, you know, according to Lil Rod's lawsuit, when the LAPD come, they spend a long time interviewing people inside the studio, that there's blood inside the bathroom, but that in the police report, ultimately they take the version that was given to them by Diddy's head of security, who's a guy named Fahim Muhammad. And he's the one who talks to the cops when they get there. And he tells them what Diddy told everybody to tell the cops, which is that the shooting took place outside and not in the bathroom. That's what the LAPD write down.
okay.
And then it's just like interesting, like this dude, Fahim Muhammad, just seems pretty interesting too. In his lawsuit, he says that, and this like kind of goes to like, okay, Diddy connections to LAPD, LAPD connections to Biggie's murder, things like that. How connected are all these people, and like, you know, how potentially embedded are they? Supposedly Diddy told his staff that if they're ever pulled over by the cops, either in Miami or LA, that they're supposed to call this dude first, and he gets them out of it.
Of
you
course.
know?
This is what I like suspect is going on all the time.
And a big part of the lawsuit is kind of like naming Diddy collaborators too. There's a specific comparison that is made, like a Diddy Epstein comparison that is made. But a lot of it is about basically like that all of Diddy's management and the management at his record labels, they know about all this shit.
So the comparison is like Epstein's flight list is Diddy's party invite list. Like,
Kind of.
if you've been to a Diddy party, you've seen shit.
Yeah.
Whether you took part in it or
Yes,
not, you
and
probably know that some shit goes down.
well, yes, absolutely, and that like just like Epstein or like at least the rumors about Epstein is that everything that happens at Diddy parties is filmed, and that stuff is potentially used for blackmail, and that is one of the ways that Diddy like maintains power in the music industry.
Makes sense. I'm curious
I
what
guess so,
is gonna like unravel with Usher here.
Yeah, Usher since the Super Bowl. Have you seen any of like the controversy about what Usher's been up to in like the last week or two? Do you know where he's been?
No.
So Usher has been posting on his Instagram. He's been chilling in Bali. It's like Usher's been posting like photos of him like at waterfalls and like meditating and shit.
Huh.
But he's also hanging out with Russell Simmons.
Okay.
And that's significant because Russell Simmons is a music producer, and he also has like a bunch of like he has some sexual assault allegations. Instead of Usher saying anything about what's going on with Diddy or any of this stuff, he's on vacation in Bali and hanging out with somebody who is also like has like accusations against him. So he's kind of made his bed as far as like what side he's on.
Well, that's what the celebrities do. They go off to these like weird meditation retreats and shit.
Yeah. So he does make specific claims about what types of sexual harassment that Little Rod was exposed to by Diddy. He uses this specific language. He says that he was exposed to constant, unsolicited, and unauthorized groping and touching of his body and his anus. Basically, like Diddy would corner him and like try and grope him and grab him and touch him and stuff.
Or maybe he was having somewhat of a consensual sexual experience and like orgies or something, and people were trying to do butt stuff to him or something.
He doesn't specifically say that. Like, he never says that Diddy, I don't know, like penetrates it or does anything specific like that. He specifically says that he showed them like this video of some men having gay sex. And he claimed that one of the men in the video is music producer Stevie J. And Stevie J is like a famous music producer. He produced an album for Puffy. He won a Grammy for producing Puffy's debut album, I guess, in 1997. And he also produced like music by Mariah Carey and Big and Jodeci, Faith Evans, Jay-Z. So he's like a big music producer. This was somebody that Little Rod looked up to. And so like Diddy's showing him videos like being like, hey, well, this is Stevie J doing it. This is something that's totally normal in the industry. Like, we all do it, basically. And I guess he even like went so far as to claim, I can get you a Producer of the Year Grammy.
I imagine like these conversations sound insane. Like, who goes to a job and then the boss tells you like, look at this video of your other coworkers butt fucking, and like that can be us. But I imagine that these conversations are probably happening on drugs. And I don't know, maybe you listener out there has never done drugs, but you retain information under a different lens, and it can be more manipulative, and it can sound more normal when you can bring like drugs do things like that's why rapists use drugs, because you can manipulate people easier and you can have the confidence to say shit that sounds atrocious.
Yes.
That's why drugs are usually involved in rape.
And drugs are involved in nearly every one of these situations.
And
as
alcohol.
well,
and you're loopy and you don't even remember shit and all of the things.
So there's a couple other specific instances that he refers to, and they pretty much all involve something like that, where Diddy either like kind of like coerces him into, or kind of like maybe even like kind of tricks him into using drugs, or they're drinking and then it seems like he also gets drugged. Little Rod talks about a specific incident that took place on Thanksgiving of 2022.
Wow.
They're hanging out with a musician named Young Miami.
If they were
and
still
Diddy.
following COVID rules, they would have stayed home and stayed 6 feet apart. No reason to be partying.
Well, they're partying and Little Rod's hanging out with Diddy and Young Miami and Young Miami's cousin, and Diddy's trying to get him to do drugs, and I guess like
Cocaine, right?
yeah, he's trying to get him to blow, and I guess what happens is Diddy like tells Young Miami's cousin, or supposedly like Diddy kind of makes this happen. Like, she follows Little Rod into the bathroom, tries to perform oral sex on him. I get the feeling from all of these stories that Little Rod, he wanted to produce Diddy's album, but he like didn't really want to like hang out for the parties. He just wanted to do the music, and like Diddy's like, no, you're going and partying, because this seems to happen kind of over and over. But it's
I
like,
mean, is Lil Rod married? Does he have?
I don't know. I think he's a pretty young guy. Okay, anyways, young Miami's cousin follows him into the bathroom, tries to perform oral sex on him. He doesn't want it, but I guess, but like, so I guess he like tries to leave and goes out into the room. So he's out in the main room with everybody, but so now she's still like, she tries to have sex with him there, and she kind of like, they describe it specifically where it's like she's on top of him and trying to straddle him and kind of trying to, but I don't know how successful it was, but basically Diddy's trying to force this girl to have sex with him.
It's interesting. Like, I have been sexually assaulted in my life. I'm a woman. And like when I talk about rape, I understand why the topics of men being sexually assaulted is complicated. Because like, okay, well, he probably was legitimately stronger than her. And we have this idea that men are weak if they're raped, or that they don't get raped, or that he actually wanted it, that all men want sex. There's just so many layers to unpack with like,
Yeah.
male victims of sexual assault. And so these details are interesting because there are reasons
Totally. It's
why.
like, oh, why didn't he want this girl to go down on him in the bathroom? Or it's like, I don't know,
Right.
he was there to make music. That really seems to be the case with this guy.
Well, and that's why I asked if he was married. Like, what if he had a girl, or not even married? Like, what if he had a
Totally.
girlfriend and he just like wasn't wanting to do this? And of course, there's temptation, right?
It's-
If someone's offering
or
you a
maybe this
blowjob, it might be
just-
hard. But it's just like, well, I don't know. Maybe he didn't know this chick and he just like didn't really want to do that, and he like wasn't into it. And they used drugs to manipulate him, and he felt like he couldn't say no or be blatantly saying no or being quote rude because his fucking boss is right there.
Well, his boss is the one who's making him do it. He's the guy
Yeah,
who's
exactly.
signing his paycheck, literally.
Yeah, what if he's got a kid to take care of and feed, and or the blackmail, like he says no and he runs out of there, but then they shoot him because he's seen stuff at the parties. Like, men can be raped. End of story. Go on.
It seems like there are some nice kids like this who just want to make the music, and the problem is that they're being forced into all the sex, drugs, and rock and roll shit. And it's like, hey, maybe that shit sounds cool to you. Why is it getting forced on him like this? It seems like Diddy is constantly forcing him into things that are like too much for him, or things that he just isn't interested in or wouldn't have been interested in otherwise, like with the drugs and this partying. And he says that he was often like forced to solicit sex workers, similar to Cassie. He says that on Thanksgiving on this same day, and that there are other incidents where he, was like forced to solicit sex workers, and he would be drugged, and he'd woke up in the bed, would wake up in the morning and didn't know what happened.
And just to make this clear, because I'm not sure if you mentioned this, but Young Miami, also known as Carisha, is in a relationship with Diddy. She's in an open relationship with Diddy since 2021.
Interesting.
So they're known as a couple.
So yeah, I didn't really know who that was.
She's younger than me. She's 29.
Well, that's interesting how that tracks with his previous relationships, like the relationship with Cassie or the relationship with Kim Porter, in the sense that like, oh, she's in an open relationship with Diddy. Does he also produce her music? Or are they dating? Do they have kids together? Do they do freak offs?
Diddy has
A bunch of
7
kids, yeah.
Diddy just had his 7th child, and he named her after himself. Her name is
Like Will Smith.
Yeah, but even worse, her name is Love Sean Combs.
Okay.
That poor girl, the rest of her life, she's going to be named Love, first off, which is just quite the name. And then,
I mean, Love's fine, but
I guess, but then Love Sean Combs, he's like signing a letter with her name.
yeah.
Did the mother get any like influence in that name? And
It's
then
like
he's
another instance
now,
of like megalomania too, where it's like you're naming your daughter after you, but like almost as though your daughter is a gift to the world from you.
or to himself.
Yeah, or
just-
something.
I don't know, like to have to like not only have a rapist for a father, but to be named after him and just have the exact same name. Her name is Sean Combs. Love Sean Combs. It's
Yeah.
terrible.
Who's the mother in that situation?
I guess there was like the media wasn't quite sure who the mom was, and they thought it was Miami Young, and they're like,
Yeah.
no, it's Dana Tran.
Miami Come Young. Who?
Dana Tran, who
Okay.
works in cybersecurity.
There are a bunch of like ancillary names and things that will come up in the Diddy story that like when I think I know everything and like goddamn this is part 3, like how much can we possibly talk about all this stuff? But there's all these names that keep coming up. Did you hear about the Natanya Rubin? Something about like Diddy shooting Natanya Rubin ever?
Hold on. It does seem like Diddy is producing Young Miami.
Of course.
It's like it's not totally clear. He may have been the executive producer.
Yeah, well, that
but
would
it
only
but
make
it,
sense.
it's very quiet and not made very clear because she's also
He's the
produced
DL,
by
DL producer.
um
He does a lot on the DL, that's for sure.
Southside was also a producer for her. Young Miami is part of a group called City Girls Rapper.
Okay.
But also, right when they started dating, it looks like she made a deal with Sean Diddy Combs' company Revolt. So this might be another situation where like, and I'm not trying to excuse what she's doing, but if she is assaulting Lil Rod, is she also a victim? And this is trickle down rapes because he is forcing her to do these things and she's under him. This is where it can get really tricky on like who is raping who, because a lot of the rapists are also victims. It's the more and more that I get into the music industry, the more I realize like hurt people hurt people. This came up, we were talking.
Control over one person to have control over another person, like with Usher,
Well, I was just thinking immediately Drake Bell, because all the Drake Bell stuff came out this week.
Yeah.
And, everyone's talking about how Drake Bell is finally the named victim for the Nickelodeon guy. I can't think of his name right now. And everyone's talking about that. And I'm like,
I
yeah,
think
but
there's more than one.
you're right. But I was like, but don't forget that the reason that we don't talk about Drake anymore is because he was, I believe he was with young girls. So
Okay.
Drake was canceled already, and now we're hearing about him again as the
He's
main
also a
Nickelodeon victim. Yeah.
Wild.
And
okay.
this is where it's just like hurt people, and that's not an excuse for the hurting, but it's just like we can see how this just keeps going and trickling down, especially with the young people, like this girl being, young and trying to make her career go, so she falls under Diddy, and now he's making her do this shit.
And it's like this cascade of victims too, like victim abusers, like with like, Clive Davis, Andre Harrell, Puffy, Usher, all these other people, Drake Bell or whoever, all these different situations like that. And like it's that, and then it's also like the same thing being repeated over and over, like these same images, like Weinstein, Epstein, like Diddy, because this lawsuit makes this really interesting. I was trying to say earlier about how it names a lot of co-conspirators. It talks a lot about his manager or like assistant, a woman by the name of Christina Quorum. And the lawsuit, like, I don't know how common this is in a lawsuit, but it specifically has this segment where there's a photo of Diddy and this woman, Christina Quorum, and it is juxtaposed next to a photo of Epstein and Ghislaine. And it says, Christina Quorum is the Ghislaine to Diddy's Epstein. And it has those two pictures side by side.
Yeah. I think that a lot of people who rape or assault people don't fully consciously understand that that's what they're doing. For one, like, I think about this girl, she's like, assaulting Lil Rod in the bathroom. I'm like envisioning how this happens and how, I talked a little bit about male victims and the nuances of that, but female perpetrators, as a woman, I'm told all the time, like, well, like, can you rape a man? They always want it, right? So, and if she's being fed that, like, oh, he wants this, go in the bathroom, go do this. Add on that she's on drugs and just sort of like
Seems like drugs are
loose
involved
and having fun. And she's like, come on, like, And honestly, like as a woman, we're not told ever, like no one's ever sat me down and been like, do you know how to like seek consent for a man? Because in we're just told that
Yeah, that goes
consent is
both ways, right?
automatically. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so like, and I'm not making excuses here, but I'm just saying like, did that woman consciously go in there and be like, I am assaulting this man? And
Well, he really insinuates that it was Diddy who
exactly, Diddy's the
was,
dirty
yeah,
one
the
for
Diddy is kind
sure.
of like pulling the strings on this situation, and he's like making, that he had coerced or influenced this woman into, you're gonna go do this with Rod tonight.
Right. Like, I mean, off the bat, I think of another female perpetrator when we talk about the Elizabeth Smart case, the Mormon girl who had been kidnapped for
Hmm.
months.
Hmm.
And the dude had another wife up there. And there were, like, that other woman hated Elizabeth Smart. This 14-year-old girl thought that that girl was, like, stealing her man. And there was, like, jealousy and issues. But there were, in the case, assaults between the older woman and Elizabeth. And she doesn't get an excuse out of hurting this young girl, but also she was under the control of the main rapist. And
Hmm.
that I think of like Diddy is so evil in this situation, and he is
He's pulling the
making people
strings on
hurt
these other
people.
people. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that seems to be a huge part of how he runs what he does, is pulling the strings on other people, whether he's influencing them to, do illegal things, or whether he's influencing them like professionally or financially or any of those things. That seems to be a huge part of how he works.
And for me, what really gets me is like the drug aspect. I was drugged and raped once, and I literally have no memory of it. And that's so terrifying. And like, does this girl even remember what happened? I keep giving excuses to her, but I just like keep
Yeah.
trying to like make sense of like what this looks like, because here's a man who didn't want to have sex and a woman who probably didn't want to rape someone. And who is the person running the show? You know what I mean? Is like Diddy in the background. And I just sort of see her and Rod as more of the innocent victims in this,
Potentially,
that
yeah.
she is, that she's possibly a victim too. And honestly, people don't like to talk about that, but like, not to get into my own personal stories, but oftentimes the monsters in our stories have their own monsters. And it's a very complicated thing to have to humanize the people who hurt us and understand them so that you don't do that to other people too. And just understand, like, it's a heavy topic. People aren't all
Hmm.
good or all bad, except for Diddy. He's all bad.
That even is the case with Diddy on some level, because the rumor is that he was, I mean, on some basically turned out by Andre Harrell, like
Yeah, exactly. Who hurt Diddy?
as a young man, as a very young man, and whether, that hurt him or whether that taught him how to do this with other people or whatever. It's, it's a chain reaction. It's a tool. It's so many different things.
The thing with Diddy is he ain't trying to do his best. He ain't trying to be his best self. So he was hurt and he's hurting people, and it doesn't seem like he's trying to grow or heal in that at all. He seems pretty unstoppable, like he got a taste of blood and kept going. And
So yeah, I
but
mean,
but truly, if you look at Diddy and what he's done, I guess the only thing we can ask ourselves is who the fuck hurt Diddy to make this happen, right?
he seemed to be given the formula and like he ran with it. And okay, so speaking of that, let's move on to another coercion potential situation that is detailed in the lawsuit, and that is the situation with Cuba Gooding Jr., because that closely mirrors what we were talking about, but it also adds one, the homosexual element, and then also a very famous person, as opposed to like young Miami's cousin. In this
Oh wait,
situation,
it's Young Miami's cousin in the bathroom, not
young
Young
Miami is
Miami.
at the party, but the person who is coerced or influenced to like have sex or attempt to have sex with Little Rod is young Miami's cousin.
It's just like such a random. Like she just doesn't
They're
have a
there
name.
at the
What's her
party.
name?
I don't know. It says that, I'm pretty sure that's the only way that they're identified in the lawsuit. I
Young
don't know if they're
Miami's
identified by name.
Wow.
The whole, I mean, again, this lawsuit this is public record. So if you want to see all of this information, it is all available to you. Okay, so Diddy and Little Rod and Cuba Gooding Jr. are on Diddy's yacht in the U.S. Virgin Islands. This is taking place in January of 2023. And again, there is video evidence of this. There are screenshots or photos that are included in the lawsuit itself. The way that he describes the situation is similar to the other one, where he describes it as that like Diddy has basically like offered Little Rod to Cuba, so they are together. Cuba is accused of groping and fondling the legs and thighs and touching his back near his buttocks and shoulders. This is all obviously like language that is directly from the lawsuit. And there's a photo. I mean, it's very clear. It's strange. It looks very strange. The lighting in all of these is the same. It's like red.
Okay.
It seems like when they're partying, Diddy's always got red lights.
Because he's Satan.
Yeah.
I wonder, like,
Satan.
When I was in school, I had to do this whole, I had to choose a study to do in school, and I chose to do a study on how color influences human behavior. There's certain colors, when they're mixed, they make us feel a certain way, whether it's even making us feel sick. Interior designers have a way of knowing that these palettes do certain things to certain people, and so they will make hospitals or certain colors, for instance. And so red is supposed to make us feel passionate, ignited, fiery, angry. It's supposed to ignite a lot of like intense emotions. And so we have red lights.
Or if you
for
were
things.
like lighting a scene in a film or something, you would use red in a specific context or in, you know, a number of different contexts to evoke similar
right
emotions or
the other
ideas,
thing
right?
the other thing that comes to mind when you mention that it's a red rooms is how that appears when you film, because it makes people look very dark, and it could lead to, you know, not being able to quite tell who and what is happening. You may not see faces as clearly, and people may look more like a silhouette. Just thinking like from a photography film standpoint, that like with him having things filmed, and I think
You think
he's
that the white fingernail polish would look good against the red?
stop. Well, what I was thinking is like he may be filming things so that he can go back and look at it and be turned on, but he may not want.
Well, that's something that he's accused of. There are video cameras everywhere, and everywhere that Diddy's places, and you know, his house in New York, his house in L.A., his house in Miami, his yacht, and that
This is
he
what
videotapes all this shit.
This is
and,
what doesn't
you
make
know,
sense, is like, is he videotaping it so he can watch back later and like jerk off to it and doesn't want to be caught, like it's his own personal thing? Or is he doing it for blackmail? Because the problem is like
or both.
but it contradicts itself, since he's doing things that are going to land him in jail.
Yeah.
So it doesn't make sense. It's like, if this is your
But
private.
again, like how much power does this person have, or how much influence do you need to have to be able to do these things, and to have that be your trade, or to have that be something that you clearly do that's a known secret? Again, the known secret comes in, and it's like another, like the Epstein comparison is again apt, where it's like the dude had already been convicted once. Everybody knows about this thing, the videotaping, the blackmail.
But it's like the belief that you're so powerful that you can use these videos to harm others, but that harm will not come back
Yeah,
on you.
yeah.
That it makes no sense to me, but it must just be like,
I guess
mean,
because
I think
the other people would have to expose themselves, though, and the danger of exposing themselves is that
I
bad.
just mean the cops finding the videos, right? Like, not even
the cops. I mean, you would think that, right? But there seems to be so much evidence that the cops are involved in so much of this.
I fucking guess. It just blows my mind that he's videotaping himself doing this shit. But it's like, I don't know. I'm just
It seems
little
to
old
be
me.
if you-
I'm scared of getting caught of anything, right? I've never stolen anything in my life, because who am I? I don't have that type of power. So he must just live in a completely different, that he just thinks he can get away. He can just do whatever.
You can just do whatever. They claim that he required every employee, from his butler and his chef to his housekeeper, to keep a fanny pack that contained Puffy's favorite drugs, like cocaine or GHB, ecstasy, like weed. Apparently he likes gummies. He prefers gummies, and Tusi. Apparently he
What
really
is
likes
that?
Tusi too. You heard it?
No,
It's like a
I don't do drugs.
So It's like a party drug. It's like a synthetic party drug.
Like what? Like Molly or something?
Yeah, I think it's supposed to be like a combination of cocaine and ecstasy.
Whew. Okay. But again, it's like he's making them hold them for him because then it's not on his person if he's caught. But at the same time, he's also having to like entrust that these people aren't going to rat him out. Yeah, the blackmail situation is interesting because while it like seems like it works, it's also going to backfire and he just doesn't seem to think it will backfire. Anyways.
He seems to have a pattern. It's like there's the same things happen between these different abusers, and then the same things happen that the abusers use the same pattern over and over and over. And so, he makes all these promises to people. He claims, Little Rod that claims that he promised him all kinds of things. He'd be able to get him Producer of the Year. He'd be able to get him a Grammy for this album that he's making.
I mean, those patterns will take you down because now everyone has the same story and they're corroborating each other. So.
And again, like awards and who has control over who gets awards comes into that as well. But all kinds of offers. He offered him $250,000 to buy all the instruments that he needs. He said he was going to give him a $20 million property in Miami and get him access to, and that's another big, that Puffy or Diddy could get him access to all these different record executives, all the people he looked up to, all the people he wanted to work with. And then the other side of it is that if he didn't go along with what Diddy wanted, there's always the threat. There's the threat of Diddy can ruin your career. It seems like violence is always potentially around the corner with
he
these
could
shooting.
kill you.
Yeah.
He could kill someone you know.
I mean, and Diddy says crazy shit. According to he says that he threatened he would eat his face. He said that he would eat his face.
I mean, and that sounds so weird and specific, but so was like saying that he was going to blow up Kid Cudi's car, and he fucking did.
He said that he was willing to kill his mother, Janice Combs, and that if he was willing to do that, then what would he be willing to do to him?
Is she dead? Did he kill her? Is she dead?
I don't think so, but he said he was willing to. He says crazy shit.
Janice Combs. Let's see.
It's just his mom. I think she's not dead.
She
I'm
looks,
pretty sure she's not dead.
She looks like him. Okay, but Diddy's dad died when he was 3, and I immediately was like, did Diddy murder him when he was 3 years old?
No, we covered that a little bit in part 1 when the story of Diddy, like him growing up at least. Like Diddy grew up with his mom, and then she moved him to the suburbs, and then he was like, he did great in school. He went to college and shit. He was like,
well, looks like she's alive and like 80, and the tabloids say Diddy's mom looks excellent for 80. She definitely just looks like him. She does look young for her age, but it's definitely Diddy's mom for sure.
There's one other like specific story that's kind of like alleged in the lawsuit. You want to hear about it?
Yes.
Cool.
Tell me, baby.
This one takes place, what is this, like July of 2023. So like all this stuff takes place pretty recently.
Yeah, it's all really recent.
This is all last couple of years. It's like since I don't know when this like Love album came out or when they were working on it, but it sounds like this was like recent material,
That's why I say like the COVID shutdown really did people well when everyone just stayed home and stayed out of trouble. But Diddy be throwing those parties?
Mm-hmm. And this is at a listening party at Diddy's house, a listening party for the album. I guess I'm assuming this must be like after they made it. Now they're having a listening party. He says they have a couple listening parties. Diddy likes fucking parties.
All of our listeners are gonna think I'm like pro COVID or I don't know, whatever.
Why?
I'm like, oh, everyone should just stay home so that they don't rape each other.
It's over. It's long gone. We've forgotten about that. We're on to Diddy now.
Yeah, COVID's.
We're doing a COVID episode.
All right.
COVID's canceled.
COVID's canceled. Yeah.
So in this story, there's another one of those. Like I talked about the language of the lawsuit and how like it'll talk about like an R&B singer name redacted, but then it'll be really clear about who the person is because it's like pretty obvious that this person is. They're just talking about Chris Brown.
Oh, Chris Brown is. This is the first Chris Brown cameo.
I'll bleep this shit so fast if I have to, so it doesn't matter. If you don't hear it, it's in the fucking lawsuit. It's obvious. Like,
how'd they describe him as?
It's described as like I have to go through 70 pages of that shit to look for it. But it has like I said, it says R&B singer, like name redacted. But then down at the bottom of the page, it'll be like, this R&B singer was involved in like a legal dispute with basically with Rihanna. You know what I mean? And the other one for the Usher and Meek Mill one where it's like, this R&B singer just performed at the Super Bowl. I can't remember how it describes Meek Mill, but it describes as like this rapper from Philly who I don't know.
I'm sure it's like some logistics of
pretty
like
fucking obvious. It's not like I'm
I'm
making
sure
this
it's
some
like
sort of
I'm sure it's like some like legal logistics of paperwork crap so that they can either insert the right person if that one is wrong, or because these people are going to have their separate lawsuits against them for these things or whatever.
So supposedly at this party with redacted R&B singer, there were sex workers, and there were, like they said at a lot of these parties, there's underage girls, man. He says that there are at least 5 women under 16. That's what it says in the language.
Those are girls.
Girls, absolutely. You know, like, dude, it's just kind of fucking crazy to think about. Like, why are these men partying with young teenagers? Like, what is the fucking deal with that, dude?
I just like I can't even wrap my mind around how these girls stumbled into that, because like I partied as a teenager. I did crazy shit. But with the bros down the street that I met at school or whatever, I'd never fucking met Diddy.
Fucking
How
Chris
the fuck
Brown and Diddy.
How the fuck does that even happen? You just like, are you in the right place at the right time, or are these girls trafficked and they've got somebody out there like looking for young girls?
Well, that's the scene. It seems like these guys got a lot of other people working for them, you know, and who knows?
Like Epstein had like a system,
Yep.
you know. Epstein had a very specific system. Ghislaine and, you know, his receptionist found these girls. They got them to be models and then go stay at his house. Like, that's a very specific way to get these young girls. How is Diddy getting the young girls at his parties?
It says a little bit about that in the lawsuit, where it kind of like, it specifically has the part about, oh, this woman who is, you know, his manager or assistant is the Ghislaine to Diddy's Epstein. Talks about his head of security who supposedly has connections to the police in Miami and Los Angeles. In his orbit are these people who have the connections. You know, Diddy doesn't carry the gun. There's no smoking gun in Diddy's hand. He puts it in somebody else's purse, you know, and like that's how the gangster works. There's a reason why this dude isn't canceled yet.
Yeah.
There's a reason why he still has all this power, you know? Like, there's a reason why he isn't canceled yet is because he has all this power, right?
I mean, and I was going to make the point on this podcast at the end, but I'm just going to chime it in now that I felt like Diddy was a prime case of that he's not canceled because we keep funding him, that he's somebody that we need to boycott and truly cancel and not put our money towards, so that he doesn't have so much money and power to buy off his troubles. However, the more we talk about him, I'm just like, it's almost impossible to do that anyways, because he makes his money off other people. You would also have to boycott 1,000 people that help funnel money to him in any other way. And then he has all these other people working for him. It would be impossible for us to do that work.
How do we actually get rid of Diddy if all of this hasn't been enough to already? If anything, my hope is that this stuff should now be synonymous with him. We shouldn't really be able to think of Diddy or his output. And, you know, hopefully it doesn't taint the people who are the artists he worked with, maybe who are potentially also victims. Who knows if they're victim collaborators or not? That's to be determined, really.
I mean, that's what he is. He's also a victim.
Yeah,
so
totally.
It's just like, it's so messy.
So supposedly at this party, Diddy has bottles of vodka, Ciroc vodka, and De Leon tequila, and he has got special bottles for the ladies to drink. And those bottles they're laced with, you know, potentially with what, I don't know, with ecstasy, with GHB, with, you know, ketamine, something, you know. You know, that is the accusation that takes place at this specific party. And that's something that is an accusation that kind of like follows Diddy to, it seems like there's a number of different people who make that accusation about Diddy, that it's common knowledge that at Diddy parties, they're are special bottles for the women that
It's terrifying.
are drugged. The again, the open secret. It's also alleged that Diddy brags about being the gunman in the 1999 nightclub shooting that sent Shine to prison for 10 years.
That's in this lawsuit written.
Mm-hmm. Some of that is in there too. That's something that he brags about.
Dude, I've been watching a lot of true crime in my life, and whenever someone murders someone, they always brag about it to someone. They never keep it to themselves. Idea. Somebody somewhere hears them brag.
I wonder if there's recordings of it.
I mean, if he's all drugged up, he's like not even thinking. You know what I mean? Like there's
definitely some instances of that where we have recordings
where I think
of him saying some shit. Kind of. It seems like he gets loose. But
he's become a victim to himself in a lot of ways. Like he's drugging himself. He's putting himself in these situations. He's filming himself doing this shit. Like he has blackmailed himself, and it is coming back on him. He's an idiot.
Anything else bad to say?
He's Satan. Devil. I really enjoyed your I don't hear the edits until later, and Herman over here really gets into his sound effects. And I was really excited in the first episode, I think it was, when I said devil and I got to hear the ha 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 devil sound while I was driving in my car.
We're gonna have to start making some original music.
Yes.
Okay. Do you want to talk about like a couple other Diddy updates just to wrap her up here?
Diddy updates, I guess.
Tiffany Red. Do you remember Tiffany Red?
Fuck, I don't remember.
Cassie's songwriter.
Yeah, the one that was like corroborating her story.
Mm-hmm.
So, but she now has her own lawsuit, right?
Yeah, she announced on social media that she will also be suing Diddy. This lawsuit has not dropped. It has not been made public yet, but she announced that she is going to be suing Diddy. Watch the video. It's worth watching. She makes a very impassioned statement about why she is suing Diddy.
I just thought I'd let the cat out the bag because I just can't take it anymore and I'm tired of carrying this. I am suing Sean Combs too. I am suing for tortious interference, for all of the work that I have done that has been fucked because of all of this. Fucked. I spent years working with Cassie. Years. The music is incredible. It's all fucked now. It's got all this nastiness all over it. I can't tell you what I felt like when I found out this is what was going on. So cat's out the bag. I'm suing too. That's why I haven't been answering your questions. You want to know why I haven't been in LA? You want to know why Tiffany Red is not outside doing 100%er activations? Because I don't feel safe. That's why. And I don't believe y'all neither. I don't believe you. Your story don't make sense. You know how many times I've worked at Chalice? You gotta buzz the front door. Then you gotta buzz the next door. Then you gotta ask somebody what session you going through. You think that somebody can just run in who's just got shot? That shit don't even make no fucking sense. Explain all the blood in the bathroom. Explain it. Explain it. I'm not defaming nobody. I'm exhausted with talking about Puff. I've been talking about Puff since the end of last year. I'm sick of it. This is not my life. This is not the shit. I didn't do none of this shit. Fuck that. Because I didn't do nothing but fucking write records that are fucking incredible. That are fucking incredible. And what did these niggas do? Waste my fucking time. Waste my talents. Throw me away. And y'all expect me to be fucking quiet? You want an interview? This is my life. In real life. That's Lil Rod's life. In real life. That's Cassie's life. In real life. I'm not outside because it's dangerous. You tell me who else gets to be accused of all kind of this kind of shit that ain't gonna get picked up and be in jail already?
You know, we talk about this and like I'm a total outsider, man. I'm on the sidelines. I don't know this has nothing to do with me. And so it's like there's entertainment value to it to me. I make jokes about it, but like let's be honest, like it's easier to deal with the horrors by dealing with them by cracking a joke. Tiffany, this was her art, this was her work, and Diddy kind of like ruined her life by being this awful person, by doing all these awful things. And it's worth hearing what she says, because she makes a very impassioned statement about why she would be suing Diddy. And it goes back to centering victims a little bit, which like I haven't been doing the greatest job of doing here.
Yeah, when you say crack jokes, you mean about Diddy being awful, not
Yeah, or about the
victim
specifics
story.
about the things that happen, white nail polish or freak
off,
offs,
which sound,
or
or just because he's so stupid, not because it's funny in any way.
I mean, yeah, it sounds, it maybe it is kind of, but it's like, it is also very serious, and these are people's lives, and what she says brings that into perspective a little bit. It did for me.
When I talk about I was sexually abused as a child, and when I talk about the details of that from a child perspective, it can sound very childish, and some of those aspects sound, it took me a very long time to not feel shame about those things, to talk about those things, because when you're 18 and an adult and you can report those things, but you're reflecting back on things you did or said or felt or experienced, at a very young age as a child, you feel very embarrassed of your child self. And it takes you until you're like in your 20s and 30s and sometimes 40s to be able to look back on that and be like, oh my goodness, I was a child. It's okay that I said or thought or did these things. I was still a victim. And a lot of the times, victims feel very embarrassed of some of the way that we have to describe the things that happen to us, or quote how we got ourselves into that position, which I'm putting in quotes because that's not the right framing, but when you have to tell those stories back, it's just
But that's what any other person is going to ask, right? It's like, well, why was she there in the first place, right?
Yeah, or it just sounds silly, or the things that our perpetrators say. I'm just going to share one detail. Like, a lot of my childhood, sexual assaults revolved around bribing around, video games and homework and things like that. And it sounds so ridiculous that but I was, 6, 7, 8 years old. And those things are huge deals when you're a kid. And I can look back on that and just be like, I understand how this person gained power over me. But it took me a really long time to not feel absolutely stupid about it. So I really empathize with some of these victim stories of the word freak off or whatever. It's just, it sounds so stupid, but it's real. And you also have to frame the time and the language at that time and your age. These girls are very young.
There's a whole context and a whole reason why these people were coerced into these situations.
Yeah, and it will always sound different when you hear it secondhand than when you experienced it firsthand. And that's the hardest part about the legal system. These women having to like stand up in court in front of everyone, and I commend them. They are my heroes. It's something I've never been brave enough to do because it sounds terrifying. It sounds humiliating.
So
it sounds awful. And certainly in my instance, I'm not going to go to court and end up with millions out of it. And so it just never felt worth it. But it is worth it because they can help save other people and corroborate their stories. It's a really hard decision to make. So I just commend any of Diddy's victims who he's humiliated that they've been able to come forward, including this man. And I don't want to keep emphasizing the male victim over the female victims because that was something that really bothered me. But fucking kudos to this dude, Lil Rod, who decided to come out and be like, not only was he affected by Diddy, which now he's dealing with all the gay stuff and whatever that's people are going to throw in his face, but that he said that he's a victim of assault by a woman. Like, these are really big deals. Men are really afraid to come out as victims, and I understand why. So hopefully Lil Rod coming out, we can get over the gay shit and instead be like, wow, how many men is he going to empower to come forward in their own stories? Because I host another podcast that talks a lot about sexual assault, and my list,
plug it.
Sex Without Fear. I try to separate them, but you can go check out Sex Without Fear. And I get a lot of listeners messaging me all the time, men who say, I've never said this before, but I was assaulted as a child or as an adult, usually as a child. They tell me a lot. And I've never been able to tell anyone. I don't know how to tell my partner. I've been living with this secret. It's affected me in these ways. And I can't be everyone's therapist, of course. I try to give resources and comfort them the best that I can. But the general consensus is that they've never been given a space to talk about it. They've never been given an example of a man who's been able to come forward. I hope that this conversation around Lil Rod will be that he was a man who came forward about sexual assault from men and women. So that's my hope out of this.
So one other development is that
It just never ends. Keep going.
is that the Jane Doe that is suing Diddy that we discussed in part 1, the situation involved Diddy and another record executive, and this Jane Doe and her friend. They were basically like both sexually assaulted by Diddy, Puffy at the time. This one was like the one that took place a long time ago.
Okay.
You remember that one? I don't know. Yeah,
We're in part
no.
3. They're all blending together.
What happened was the judge ruled that Jane Doe is going to be forced to reveal her identity. So, that was
Why?
something that Puffy's lawyers were trying to get to happen, right?
I wonder if it's someone famous.
Yeah,
it's gonna
potentially.
be
I was
either-
wondering if that was the reason, because I was really struggling to wonder what the other reason would be that the judge would rule that. That might be a common legal proceeding, but I was kind of baffled by the logic of it, other than potentially, maybe it's somebody who is known publicly, and so
You know
the
who
defense
I
made that
suspect?
argument.
You want to know who my guess
Sure,
is?
yeah, just speculate.
Well, because I think
Lorena.
it's one or the other, right? It's either that it's someone who's not famous at all and has no protection,
This one
and they're
took place
scared.
a long time ago, remember?
Yeah, but it's either someone who's just a no one and they don't have any security or money or, for safety, and they're terrified. Maybe they live just a normal life with a husband and kids somewhere or something.
Yeah.
Or it's someone famous that needs to protect their career or just doesn't want this. And if it's a famous person, my guess would be J-Lo, because they dated and she's the only one that hasn't come up. And it's like, well, how did you skate out of this without being scathed by anything? He never raped you. He never manipulated you, but he dated J-Lo.
I don't think that is the person in this
You don't
lawsuit,
think it is?
because this seems like this was like a person who like had like a one-time encounter with Puffy, and
But-
they didn't date them like for like
Okay.
long term the way that J-Lo did. And like J-Lo, I mean,
Has J-Lo said anything?
I have not heard anything out of J-Lo, which is probably smart to like keep your nose out of it, It
No,
seems like
it's
J-Lo is like kind of like Usher, like on the program. You know what I mean? Like J-Lo was on the Puffy program.
No, she broke her silence. First off, she dumped Diddy because he was awful.
Okay.
So there is that he was a cheater and all of that. I kind of get the vibe that maybe J-Lo was maybe someone that he didn't do as many awful things to, because for one, she had her own established career, so she wasn't like in a mentorship. And also, like, maybe that was his facade, like, oh, here's a girl who won't accuse me of things, possibly. I kind of maybe pick up that vibe. But J-Lo won't get involved in Diddy's rape accusations.
Yeah, and stay out of it. That's probably the smart
basically,
thing to do. I have
she's
nothing
just
to do
tried
with this.
to move on.
Have to make a statement to say that you have nothing to say.
Yeah, but I kind of have like problems with that. I don't know.
Why?
Like, well, because she's a woman with power, and if she knows
yeah.
anything, if
Then
she
you
knows
should say
anything,
something,
she
of
should
course.
say anything.
Yeah, well, yeah.
And
I was just saying that from her perspective. It's like, if you want to make sure that everybody knows that you have nothing to do with it, that you have nothing to say.
I mean, I don't know if this statement is like a recent rehash of her relationship, or these are old quotes, but things that she said about dating Diddy, that he was really controlling and very unfaithful and things like that. She was around during the Shine thing.
Oh, yeah.
But officially, J-Lo has never accused Diddy of abuse. But she did write a memoir, and without naming names, in her memoir, True Love, she said, "I've never gotten a black eye or busted lip, but I felt abused in one way or another, mentally, emotionally, verbally. I know what it feels like for your soul to be diminished by the way your loved one is treating you." after all these years, J-Lo and Diddy do seem like they kind of get along and they're on friendly terms, but they do not regularly contact each other. The pair were recently as in 2018, spotted greeting each other somewhat warmly at a Las Vegas show of hers. So I don't know. It's like, has she not fully unpacked everything? Does she really not know anything? But it seems like she's not really saying much or involving herself in these cases. And I don't know, I'm a little sus about that. Like,
I think that it sounds like maybe she is potentially protecting herself by not saying everything that she knows. But that seems to implicate her in the sense, so
I get
I'm
being
hesitant.
scared of him. She could just be fucking scared of him.
Yes, and I'm also hesitant to say that because the same thing was like, okay, the victim abuser thing that we're talking about. Where it's like
just
how much I really
how
don't
was
know.
he literally
it's really
while
difficult to speculate in that situation. It's like
literally
maybe.
while he was with J-Lo, he was doing some of the most horrific things to several people. So it's kind of mind-blowing that J-Lo wouldn't have known or seen or experienced any of those things herself when he was doing it to literally everyone else around him. So it kind of blows my mind. So it makes my mind wonder, like, is she just terrified? Does he have blackmail on her? Is she scared that she's going to be shot? Or was she really like his trophy girlfriend to like prove that he didn't hurt women, but she says that he did some things? Has she not unpacked it all? I don't know what to think about that. I hope that J-Lo has done everything that she should do so that she can sleep at night, because she is a very powerful woman and people would listen to her. So if she knows something that would help these other victims in their cases to put Diddy in jail, I just hope she has a clear conscience in this, that she hasn't done things to hurt people or that she doesn't know something that she should come forward about. I'm a little suspicious about it, though. I'm not trying to like blame her or victim blame her in any way either. I'm just saying, you know, when all the women come together, now's your chance to come together. So
Yeah.
I hope that if she should, she will. And
That's
has.
how the Me Too thing works.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, woman to woman, like, we do have that responsibility. It's a really hard world to navigate. I said why I didn't take my abuser to court, because I didn't feel like I had a leg to stand on. I didn't feel like anyone's going to back me up. I don't want to live through that. But if my abuser had other victims and they were coming forward, I would put it all on the line and come together, because we take care of each other and that's what we do, and that's how we try to change the world. So I get why victims don't come forward. But in this case, I hope that if J-Lo is supposed to be coming forward about something, that she takes this chance to and doesn't just hide out and wait for it to be over. She's super powerful. Of all these women, to be honest, all the women that were named in this podcast that had dated Diddy or part of his world, I had really either not heard of or barely heard of. Whereas
It seems like
J-Lo is very powerful.
It seems like these victims are really risking a lot by coming out against Diddy.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, you always are. Especially with a man who has potentially killed people or had, like, we don't even know how far that expands. We only know, I mean, whatever we know, the rest of the internet knows. We don't know anything special. So there's shit we do not know.
Yeah, it's just like knowing all of this, knowing if you've made it to the end of part 3 by now, like knowing all of that, how is he not canceled? How? What does that say about power and influence, about Diddy's position, about how that works?
I think like what's even equally or more atrocious is just how maybe he's finally being canceled because he is gay, that he gay raped someone.
Too.
That's what's so mind-blowing, is like people get so hung up on the homophobia, which is exactly what put these people in this position in the first place, because he was able to blackmail them because of how people treat gay people. And the topic of this, if we didn't have homophobia in the world, there wouldn't have been as much blackmail in this situation, fear, all of this stuff. And it's just mind-blowing that all these
women
women
have been able to blackmail him that way.
Yeah, but I just mean, like, God, I mean, you know, we talked a lot about the homophobia in the industry with the Will Smith episode, and we can't even imagine we don't, you know, we had to make a lot of guesses and that. But if that didn't exist, would anybody have cared about all of these women who had horrific stories all the way leading up to this? The internet blew up when they found out it was a man who was raped, possibly too. And also, and they're not blowing up in concern. They're laughing about it.
this really does seem to be like the story that is like the straw that broke the camel's back. I don't know, again, are we going to have to come back to Diddy? Like, prediction, I don't know how far he's going to fall, really. Fuck, let's hope, but it's like, this is definitely seems to be the one that we're not going to be able to think of this dude without thinking of all this stuff now.
I do have a prediction.
Just be that guy.
I have a prediction that if he goes to jail, which I'm not fully convinced he will.
Yeah.
If he goes to jail and is put away and there seems to be some security there, or he loses a substantial amount of money, which makes him lose some power, like if he actually gets canceled and loses money,
Yeah.
I think we'll hear about a lot more victims.
That's definitely possible.
There has to be. There's hundreds and thousands of people who have partied with Diddy. It's not just 8 or so victims here, however many people have been, named in these things. It's a lot. So this could be an entire Epstein situation, like a whole domino effect. We're going to hear about the people who were assaulted or involved in the assaulting around Diddy, and then their other victims and their other victims, because like I said 100 times, hurt people. This whole domino effect of this web of people involved around Diddy as the sun in the middle is huge. I think it will keep going. And this is how the Me Too movement just never ends, because the industry is so huge and it just doesn't stop. And every day a new victim comes forward. So that's why everything's canceled.
They said the title. No way.
Have you heard of this podcast, Everything's Canceled?
Yeah, I heard it's really good. So the only other thing that I have to talk about is the thing that everybody else is talking about, which was Meek Mill.
Who the fuck is Meek Mill?
He's a rapper.
Fill me in, because I
He did
have
some
literally.
songs. We'll drop. I guess we'll drop a clip in. Don't tell anybody.
I did it without an album. I did shit with Mariah. Little nigga, I'm on fire. Icy as a hockey ring. Philly nigga, I'm flyer.
Don't fucking tell anybody.
You're gonna have to
I'll
cover
cut
it,
that
babe.
too.
Can you do a Meek Mill song?
No. Can you?
I don't know who the
Yeah.
fuck he is. It's such a dumb
He's pretty
name. I've
popular.
never
No,
heard it.
I definitely got a song or two on a playlist.
And these niggas hating on me. Hoes waiting on me. Still on that hood shit. My Rolls Royce on E. They gon' remember me. I say remember me. So much money at your friends turn to your enemy. And when this beef, I turn my enemies to memories.
What?
He had a good like BLM song, 2020 song that I remember liking. By now you've heard of his defense of himself on Twitter.
I've actually kind
X.
of tuned out this part of what's going on, because first off, I was trying to move on to our next podcast. So
Yes.
you were finalizing up Diddy stuff, so you were still tuned in. I've ignored this. So fill me on Meek Mill. I just Googled him.
Yeah, Meek Mill took to Twitter
He's kind of cute.
in the wake of these allegations, because he seems to be the redacted rapper who has mentioned that Diddy kind of uses as an example, I guess, to try and persuade Little Rod into taking part in homosexual behavior. So Meek Mill has gone to Twitter to defend himself. Lorena, you should read it.
Every black blog site enhanced that post to make me seem gay. I change laws for our people. I donate millions. They are designed to destroy the image of black leaders. It can't work with me, though. You gotta really kill me, and I still will get bigger after death. This God, not me. LOL. When I got a girl around me, I'm fucking her twice a day. LOL. Ask some of your favorites. Oh, is that pussy blurred out? Pussy don't control me, but it's like a high. One love to the gay people, but that juicy pussy do it for me. I done ran red lights to get that feeling. Y'all weird on here like devils. If you support me now, then when I own the masked pub on my creations, I'ma cut a deal with the governor when music earning... Oh, hold on, let me read. I was like, why is this cut off? Okay. If you support me now, then when I own the masters and the pub on my creations, I'ma cut a deal with the governor where 10% of my music earning go to the Philadelphia school system. I'ma show you all what I do with this shit. I mean, great. I'm glad he likes pussy.
Says
That
a
doesn't
lot.
mean he doesn't like other things. That doesn't mean he wasn't raped. That doesn't mean I don't...
Case closed, Meek Mill, bro. I
I just,
know
like-
him. I hear it. I hear him.
Why are men always just like, don't look at me, I love that pussy? It's like, yeah, I do too. That doesn't, I like dick too. I don't know. Whatever, bro. You can be straight. I'm not gonna like argue someone's sexuality. It's just
Juicy pussy, do
Whatever.
it for me.
And if he thinks that doesn't like kind of shame gay people, like I don't think he was trying to, but like
He's
fucking
just-
check your homophobia. Check yourself, whatever. All right, Meek Mill. He's kind of cute. I'm curious. I'll listen to his music, I guess. We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
But wait, so Meek Mill is the possibly the unnamed rapper who
The redacted rapper in the lawsuit, but then, like I said, in the subnotes, it's like a Philadelphia rapper who it makes it clear.
So, something that we keep forgetting to include in the podcast because we love this shit, as skeptical as we are, Herman and I are a little indulgent in
Oh no.
astrology. And because people love to talk about like the signs of serial killers and how they're all like Virgos or something.
Yeah, we wanted to put this up front.
Yeah, so let's just update you right now. Okay, we're going to first,
You got Diddy.
well, no, us. What are we?
Oh.
We're double Scorpio. So we're both Scorpios. We get a lot of shit for that because how can two Scorpios be together? And not everyone can handle so much in one room,
You're
but
hearing it.
yeah, we are both Scorpios. And Diddy is a Scorpio.
The
So there's
dark
that. We
scorpion,
don't
no
we don't
fucking
claim
shit.
him. But let's reel it back. So Diddy is a Scorpio. Who is our episode before that? Will Smith is, of course, a fucking Libra,
Yeah.
which I get. I get Libras. I have a Libra moon. I attract a lot of Libras into my life, and I don't know, that just really made sense to me. I was like, of course he's a Libra. Jada is she a Libra or Virgo?
Virgo, right?
Virgo,
Yeah,
September 18th. That also
Virgo.
right before Libra. So she's a cusper between Libra and Virgo. That makes sense.
No surprise there.
Yep, Virgo and Libra couple there. That really makes sense. Reel it back. Who was before Will and Jada?
Danny.
Danny Masterson is a Pisces. Interesting.
Mhm. And Russell Brand.
Russell Brand. What do you think Russell is? Do you remember?
Finally and least
What do you think Russell Brand is?
like what's the loud one? Like Cap or something?
What is the most hated sign?
Gemini?
Yes, he's a fucking Gemini. I can't figure out Geminis, and I'm sorry. I have a son who's a Gemini, and I know I shouldn't say that. And your rising is a Gemini, and that's the part of you I
It's my
find
big three.
shady. There's a little part of you I don't trust.
You shouldn't.
It's fucking weird. Geminis are fucking weird. Russell Brand is fucking weird. You want to think he's one thing and he's another. Or he's everything,
Yeah,
or
he's
both.
kind of
I don't
exactly
know.
what he was. He
Yeah.
kind of turned out to be exactly what he was. Wasn't too.
He's not all good or all bad, but he is a lot of both. He is a lot of good and a lot of bad. Like Russell Brand is someone that I listen to. He had a lot of intriguing thoughts, but he's also just a fucking piece of garbage. Absolute garbage. And that seems to be like a very toxic Gemini thing. So we
Cover
wanted to
up.
plug that in. We're not going to talk about the signs of everyone every time, but we wanted to catch you up on the signs because it's something that we were looking at for our next episode and the next and their signs also made sense. Anyone who hates astrology fucking hates me now. So we'll sign off. But for those who love it, I thought you might be interested to see the signs of all the evil people who come in on the show.
Well, whole episode, Dixie Chicks.
Yeah, next episode, Dixie Chicks. I'm super excited. We've been talking a lot on
Yeah.
this show
Let's talk about this one. It would
show.
be fun to do one about somebody that we like.
This is my lane. I'm very deep in the country music world. It contradicts a lot of my views and personality. It's something people are very confused on, but I will explain how my family has been involved in country radio my whole life. So the Dixie Chicks is going to be a huge episode for me. I'm super excited, and it'll be a little bit more lighthearted. The cancellation is heavy. But
It's gonna it's gonna be a different type of episode. I think it'll be fun.
and what it means to us. We got to listen to Dixie Chicks the last 2 weeks. Herman over here had to catch up on his 90s girl power music.
Been
and
listening to a lot of the chicks.
Yes, on repeat. I've been hearing him sing the songs. It's been super romantic for me to hear him singing all the love songs of my childhood. They are fucking talented, so we're going to get into that. And if you haven't heard anything about the Dixie Chicks, a cancellation or if you have, I think it will be a fun episode for you either way. So signing off until next time.
We're done.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening. Bye.
What do you have to lose? You're living in poverty. Your schools are no good. You have no jobs. 58% of your youth is unemployed. What the hell do you have to lose?
Reporting live from the other side of America. Mama let me sip the 40. I was just a shorty. Then I started spitting garlic, and they said record me. I feel like this shit was for me. This shit just my story. Yeah, jumped out the porch, I got a Porsche, no take it back. I'm on the block with the killers and holding my own, of course, yeah. I see my mom and dad separate, ain't talking divorce. Said daddy was living by the fire, and he died by the torch. I'm where the AKs is, we like the baby kids. Ain't ever daddy, I listen to suckers the same way that Ray did. I'm talking Smithers and HKs, and I just was a grade A kid. Ain't on no guy, and we grew up with hitters and did everything they said. Point out the block, we spinning that. Running the spot, we getting that. Give us some work, we flipping that. I'm hitting from jet, I ain't hitting back. I need a lawyer, money for commissary, ain't nobody ain't sending that. I'm in my cell, like when I get out, I'm making a movie, no Cinemax. Who? Yeah, back home and I'm fresh on bell. Phone chirping, it was next to tell. Block popping, it was extra sell. Big dogs, they ain't showing remorse. I was begging just to catch a cell. Same block, we was going to war. I was praying I ain't catch a shell. Hey, oh. We ain't starving for 1,000 nights. Living like we trying to die tonight. Glock 40 sound like dynamite. I was fucking up my car money. Selling soap like it's China white. OG said you fucking a block up. I was mad, I was trying to fight. Nigga, we hungry. Mommy at work, daddy he dead. Nigga, we hungry. Stomach growling like an AMG. Going to bed, we hungry. Uzi on me, all my friends are dead. Nigga, we hungry. Reporting live from the other side of America. Reporting live from the other side. Same corner where my brothers died. Living like we ain't got care. Told my mama I ain't dying here. 40 on me, I ain't buying beer. Ain't have a wheel, now I'm flying Lear. Bunch of fellas on the jet with me. Make a movie like it's Con Air. Started off in the basement, now it's rooftops in LeBron Air. Still fighting over cases. I don't bail, nigga, but it's my year. Summertime, it get cold out. Heater on me like a mind clear. Closet bigger than my old house. Thinking about it, I was fine there. Came in the dirt. Dedicated, I was making it work. Medicated, I was taking them perks. Devastated when my niggas got murked. Educated, had to get to it first. I knew trapping it'd get me in jail. Playing with pistols, it'd give me a hearse. But I ain't give a fuck. Send me to church. Woo. Yeah, they gotta catch me in traffic. I ain't with none of this ration. I been trying to run from these caskets. All of this pain, but then me, nigga, you don't want none of this action. Go get some money and feed your fam, cause this is a fucking disaster. Jay, oh. We ain't starving for 1,000 nights. Living like we trying to die tonight. Glock 40 sound like dynamite. I was fucking up my car money. Selling soap like it's China white. OG said you fucking a block up. I was mad, I was trying to fight. Nigga, we hungry. Mommy at work, daddy he dead. Nigga, we hungry. Stomach growling like an AMG. Going to bed, we hungry. Uzi on me, all my friends are dead. Nigga, we hungry. Reporting live from the other side of America.
I always dreamed too of being like on like CNN and being able to express myself and speak for like the voiceless young men of America. The first step I would say, I grew up in America in a ruthless neighborhood where we're not protected by police. We grow up in ruthless environments. We grow up around murder. You see murder. You see 7 people die a week. I think you would probably carry a gun yourself. Would you?
Yeah, I probably would.